Math by the Moon, back with another video. Today we're going to talk about the steps that you need in order to be able to find solutions to polynomial equations using your TI-84. So first of all, when you look at your graphing calculator, you have several buttons that are very important for this process. You have your Y equals editor, your window button, the zoom button, the trace button, the graph button, and this button right here, x, t, theta, and n, that's going to be the button you use for your x variable in your equation. So I have over here a picture of a quadratic equation graphed in the coordinate plane, and I wanted to talk just briefly about what the zeros, the roots, the solutions, or the x-intercepts are. So when you look at this graph, the zeros are located on the x-axis. They are the x values that make the equations equal to 0. So in a quadratic equation, what you're going to see is that usually you're going to end up with two solutions. Now you could only have one or none, but the majority of these equations are going to have two solutions. They happen to fall on the x-axis, so we call them the roots, the solutions, the x-intercepts, or the zeros. There's 4 names for these types of answers to a quadratic equation, or any other polynomial for that matter. So you'll hear me use these words sort of as synonyms throughout the course. So let's do our first example together. First of all, I want to go to my Y equals editor, and I want to type in my equation, x squared minus x minus 56. Again, you're using your x button for the variable. This is x, t, theta, and n. Normally what we want to see when we push graph, we want to see both of the critical points, both of the zeros, both of the x-intercepts. And in this graph, we can't see the vertex, the lowest point where it dips down here. And that's a window adjustment you can do. If you wanted to, you can go into your window, and it appears to me that it's a Y issue. We could change our Y max and our Y min, specifically the Y min, because if we go back to the graph, we can't see this low point here, right? We can't see where it is. So if I change my window so I can see the low point, I would be changing the Y minimum value only. It's not particularly important if we're just looking for the zeros. So now I want to run you through the process for calculating zeros. What you want to do is you want to push the trace button. And right now this is showing up at 0 and negative 56. There's a little blinky at 0 and negative 56. So that means it's way down here on the y-axis, and that's typically where it will show up all the time when you push trace. So you want to use your directional pad left and right to try to slide this blinky, I like to call it, to the side, whichever side you want to start with in terms of finding the 0. So I'm going to go over here to the left side, and I'm going to move my blinky, and as you watch, the x and y coordinates are going to change as I try to move the blinky over by my x-intercept. There it is. Okay, so I like to try to get the blinky close to the x-intercept, and then in blue here you have an option for calculate. So you have to hit the second button and then calculate. We're going to calculate a 0, that's what we've been calling it, and it's going to ask you for a left bound. That means it wants your blinky to be to the left of the 0. So I want to make sure that I'm clearly to the left of this 0, and once I'm to the left, I'll hit enter. And then now it's asking me for a right bound. So what I'll do is I'll move my blinky back to the other side and make sure that I'm clearly onto the right. And what I'd like to point out is that these two little triangles here point to one another. If they don't point to one another, you're going to come up with an error here. Okay? Now, it tells you that the guess is this, and we don't want the guess. Okay? We would rather know exactly what this 0 is. So we'll hit enter again, and it will tell us that the 0 is negative 7, that the x value is negative 7, that would make the equation for y equal to 0. So one of the zeros is negative 7. So we can record that over here. Okay. And what we'll have to do is we'll have to go through the exact same process. We'll have to trace our curve back over to this side, and we'll have to do the same thing. We'll have to calculate the 0 with the left bound and the right bound. So I'll slide the blinky over. Whoops, trace. And you can go a little bit faster than I can, but for some reason on my computer here the button sticks, so I don't like that. Now I know I'm getting close because I know it's a positive x value, so I know it's probably close to around 8-ish. If I slide this over until I see my blinky, oh, there's the blinky. And now I'm going to go back through my calculate menu. Second, calc, I want a 0. And this time you have to be careful. The left bound is actually going to be below this x-intercept, so I'll hit enter below it. And again, it pops up my triangle. Now it's asking for my right bound, so I'll go to the other side and go to the right of the 0. And just to check, my triangles point towards each other, so I know that I'm going to be correct here in setting up my left and right bound. I do not want the guess, so I'll hit enter one more time, and it will tell me that my other 0 is 8, so I'll record that here also. So my two zeros for this, my x's equal -7 and 8. Okay? Now, if I did the second example, we could find the zeros as well. So why don't you go ahead and try to find the zeros for this one and this one. I recommend pausing the video right now and then finding these with your teammates. And once you think you have the zeros for both of these, then you can push play and see if you have the correct zeros.